When you hear the term deep state actor, who comes to mind? Do you think of former FBI Director James Comey, a man who should arguably be in prison? Do you think of James Clapper, Barack Obama's Director of National Intelligence? Or do you think of someone like John Brennan, former CIA director who served from 2013 to 2017, otherwise known as one of the most notorious figures in swamp history? None of those names would be surprising at all because they all spent years in Washington, D.C., largely operating in the shadows with little or no oversight from the American people. And many American voters and taxpayers still don't know much about who these individuals really are, or their backgrounds, or their work, or how they totally reshaped our country. But that's where our next guest enters the picture. Born in 1976, he's a fourth-generation San Francisco Bay Area native, and he's known for his advocacy work, including by President Trump, who called him a prize fighter in 2020. He's worked in business, he's worked in politics, and in the radio industry. And in the summer of 2025, a book of his about a major scandal involving John Brennan was finally published. It's called High Stakes Treason: How John Brennan Compromised American Security for Millions. And he's here now to tell us all about it. So without further ado, here is author Ian Trottier. Ian, thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot, Riley. It's nice to be with you.
So I'm so sorry, but I have a lot of questions. Could we start with your background and what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, basically, in 2016, I was living in Miami Beach, and there was this Zika scare, the media frenzy around the Zika scare. It got me looking into corruption in the pharmaceutical industry, and I started a podcast. And in 2024, I was at a CPAC, Riley, where I was approached by a former FBI agent. Now, this man handed me a binder of research that he asked me to help him get to the masses and deliver it to the people. I spent the next year aggregating all of that information, compiling it into a book. I initially had Skyhorse Publishing listening to me, but Post Hill Press, Bombardier Books, the imprint of Post Hill Press, gave me a contract to publish the information. When I received the information, Riley, I looked at this former FBI agent who left the FBI in 2000, by the way, and I said, "Wait a second, what you're doing here is following the money." And he says, "That's exactly right. I'm a follow the money type guy, Riley." And I says, "What you've compiled here, what you're showing me in this research, is that the former head of the CIA has committed very heinous crimes, allegedly treason, on the American people." He looked back at me, Riley, and this is a man that spent over 10 years in the Washington, D.C. field office, a stalwart member of the Bureau. He looked back at me and he said that, yes, that's exactly what has happened here.
Wait, so Ian, so let's back up for a minute. So you're at CPAC 2024, minding your own business, and seemingly out of nowhere, a former FBI agent approaches you with information about a major scandal that nobody's covering, just by happenstance?
That's correct. He spent, Riley, in 2011, he came across the malfeasance of John Brennan in regards to a NATO ally and a bombing that happened under a man named Anders Breivik. He submitted a tip. He was working with a company called Cyvalence. He submitted a tip to his former employer, the FBI. He walked into the office of Cyvalence, the employer at that time, in the morning, and they asked him, they took him aside in the office, Riley. They said, "Did you submit a tip regarding John Brennan, a cabinet member of the Obama administration, to the FBI yesterday?" He says, "Yes, I'm seeing that crimes are being committed." They said, "Pack your bags, you're fired." He received a subsequent death threat. His family ostracized him. But this man is a hero because he kept going and kept working on his research for, as we know, the next decade to get the information out. As a matter of fact, in 2019, he submitted a 25-page synopsis of the contents that I deliver in the book, known as High Stakes Treason, to various media outlets. Riley, nobody listened to him. Everybody thought he was nuts, complete crickets. When he came to me, the information resonated with me, and that's why I have spent now almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years, I believe, this coming March, pushing this information as hard as I can, because what we find is that John Brennan, the former head of the CIA, and this will blow viewers away. He allowed 2 domestic terror attacks to happen under his watch and 1 under the NATO ally to happen under his watch. And that was what I just mentioned, the Anders Breivik. And he did it so that he could enrich himself financially. Riley, I spent 2.5 weeks in October. I spent 2.5 weeks on Capitol Hill, walking the halls of both the House and the Senate, lining up various meetings. I spoke with Harriet Hagman's office. I spoke with Marsha Blackburn's office and a few other offices. I passed out 100 copies of this book. There are 100 copies of this book circulating on the Hill right now. What we know is that prior to the Russian collusion hoax, Riley, John Brennan committed these very heinous crimes on the American people to enrich himself just shy of what we allege is $5 million. That was just one stock that he held illegally, by the way, in a company formerly known as the Analysis Corporation. There's 2 sides of this coin. But going back to the Russian collusion, this shows clear motive as to why John Brennan orchestrated the Steele dossier movement with right. with Stephen Halper, okay, critical, and some other people at Cambridge. So this is incredibly important, Riley.
So Ian, before we let you go, and that's fascinating, by the way, I can't believe nobody's talking about this. Where can people pick up your book? And do you have any final words for our audience about it?
Yeah, so people can go right now, please, Amazon, just go to High Stakes Treason, buy the book, leave a review. But more importantly is tell your neighbors about it. Tell the people in the grocery store about it. Get your local communities talking about this. What we have right here, and I'm trying to, Riley, and I've spoken to him briefly. And John Kiriakou has written one of the forwards into this book, right. Critical, because he's spoken to Joe Rogan recently and Tucker recently. John Kiriakou is explaining a lot of the attacks that John Brennan personally had on Kiriakou's own career. But get your neighbors talking about this. Get your communities talking about this. Get your local houses of worship talking about this, because what we have with John Brennan is the tip of the spear in many ways to this swamp that is running our federal government in D.C. If we are successful, which I believe we can be, if we work together in taking down John Brennan, that is going to help unravel this global cabal that has suffocated our constitutional republic.
Well said. Ian, thank you so much for being here today, by the way. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Anytime, Riley. Looking forward to it.
Well, folks, that concludes our broadcast today. We truly hope you enjoyed it. And remember, we always want to hear from you, so please email us your feedback and any news stories you'd like us to cover to therealstory@oann.com, and be sure to follow us on social media at @TheRealStoryOAN. So until we meet again, God bless you. God bless our troops, and God bless America.